Awesome. So let's get started. So Jacob, if you would like to just introduce yourself, and then from there we can kind of jump into what RISC Zero is all about. I actually saw on one of your social media posts that you guys said RISC Zero is the engine and Boundless is the car. So I'd like to kind of like dive into that. I really like that analogy. But yeah, if you could just get started with just tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about RISC Zero, and then we could take it from there.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm Jacob Everly. I'm the product lead for Boundless, which is a protocol that RISC Zero is currently internally developing. Most people know RISC Zero for the RISC-V zkVM. The big unlock here is, instead of needing to have a PhD in cryptography to write ZK applications, we built this, zkVM, which just allows you to use a high-level language like Rust, and then generate ZKPs in a cost-effective manner. And it's been really cool the past, I would say, year. We've really found some strong product market fit. I think most ZK teams at this point are switching or already using a zkVM, which is really cool. And we're seeing people use it across every ecosystem. People are using Ethereum. We have a bunch of people using the Bitcoin now, Cosmos and Solana as well. And our goal for Boundless is we saw that a lot of our customers were running into the same roadblocks when it came to deploying to production. And we're trying to abstract those away even more. So ideally now you show up, you write Rust, you request through a very simple market a proof, and the proof should just show up to your application guaranteed. So you don't have to worry about aggregation, verification, or proof generation. And one way we realize that is partnering with people like BitcoinOS who are building these other pieces, and allowing developers really easy access to these tools.
Amazing. And could you dive into Boundless a little bit more and maybe kind of give like a more like simplified explanation as well for our listeners?
Yeah, so we call Boundless the universal ZK protocol because regardless of what chain you're on, you should be able to access production-ready ZK infrastructure with ease. Boundless is a set of smart contracts, cryptographic primitives, and off-chain components that allow this to happen. The cool thing about ZK is we no longer need these quorums of validator sets to ensure security and liveness. For security, we just need to assume that there are no bugs in the ZK system. And for liveness, you just need to ensure that one honest party can fulfill each path of the process. And that's sort of the basis of how we've built it. So there's the smart contract where you can interface, and then we have a bunch of software around that to help fulfill everything else.
Okay, thank you so much. That's very exciting. And Yago, if you want to just quickly give a just a quick explanation of Bitcoin OS 2 for our listeners of who we are, what we're doing, and then we can just push forward from there.
Can you hear
Yago,
me?
yes, we can hear you.
All right. Hello, everyone. So, what we're building with BitcoinOS is the operating system for Bitcoin. So, an operating system built into Bitcoin that allows Bitcoin to become fully programmably aware, allows you to build programmable tokens in Bitcoin, issue new tokens on the Bitcoin ledger, trustlessly move BTC between different chains, build smart contracts for Bitcoin, build rollups for Bitcoin, build ZK apps for Bitcoin. And the way we're doing it is we are allowing computation to occur off-chain because it can't occur on Bitcoin mainnet. Bitcoin mainnet has relatively small amount of data, only 4 megabytes every 10 minutes, and it also has very little native programmability. And so we've figured out how to build the ability to verify ZK for Bitcoin and then have like a smart contract living somewhere else on another chain or even on a server somewhere, talk to Bitcoin, allow Bitcoin to see that the computation was performed correctly, and execute transactions on Bitcoin on that basis. And so basically what BitcoinOS is, it's turning Bitcoin into what we've always been talking about, which is this fully programmable Internet of Value and this central hub, which all the rest of crypto can integrate into to get to basically, on the one hand, unleash BTC and let people start using BTC, and on the other hand, provide more interoperability and more security to the entire crypto space, because the entire crypto space can be built on Bitcoin. So that's a high level of what BitcoinOS is doing. Much of this, if with RISC Zero, their ZK prover and verifier is the engine, and Boundless is the car. We have basically a similar situation. We've got the engine, which is the ZK verifier, Bitsnark, which we've built for Bitcoin, which is already on live on Bitcoin mainnet, and the car is the entire operating system that makes it easy for developers to use this. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to try and contextualize this in what I think is the biggest, most important change that is happening in crypto right now. Not just in crypto, but in sort of cryptography and the way we do computation more generally. That I want to explain why I think BitcoinOS and RISC Zero are both part of the story, and in fact, two of the most important players in the story. And I kind of want to get Jacob's take on what I'm about to say, because it's something that not a lot of people are talking about. And I'm curious to find out whether or not RISC Zero share my view on this. All right, so let me set the context. Ever since Ethereum launched, Ethereum did something really amazing, paradigm changing. It introduced this idea that you can have decentralized compute. You could run computations in a way that were verifiable by the world, right? And so that meant that you could build smart contracts that were immutable, that were incorruptible, that everyone could trust, because no one controlled them, and because everyone, and this is the most important part, could verify that those computations were being done correctly. And the way that Ethereum and every single subsequent chain, every single smart contract chain that has come since, achieved this is by writing the software, right? Writing the smart contract into the chain, and then every single validator, every single full node would run that software independently. So let's take a concrete example, right? Something like a simple DEX like Uniswap. A DEX like Uniswap is basically just the software of the DEX written into Ethereum, and then you as a user and hundreds of users like you can send transactions and instructions, like trade instructions, to that software, and that software computes the trades that you guys need to be doing. And so what that actually looks like is that every single one of those instructions, every single one of those computations, then needs to be repeated independently by every single computer that is running a full node or that is a validator. So instead of just running the software once, you run the software tens of thousands of times. And so when people talk about smart contracts not scaling and not being scalable, when they talk about Ethereum being really expensive, the gas costs are really expensive. What are gas costs? Gas costs are the cost of the compute. This is what they're talking about. Ultimately, this is the fundamental reason it is so unscalable and so expensive to do this kind of computation. And that is where this huge change that is currently happening lies. Because today, what zero-knowledge proofs have introduced is a new way to think about how you write software. Today, you can write software that you can run on one machine that only one guy controls. But when he runs that software, he can spit out not just an output like, okay, this trade happened, but with that output, he can also spit out a proof that the computation was run and that the computation was run correctly. In other words, he can spit out a proof that he can't cheat. So instead of having to have all of the computation written into the chain, which is very expensive, and then have tens of thousands of people and computers run exactly the same simple computation, which is very expensive, you can now limit the number of computers that actually need to run this computation to just one, or maybe just a few for redundancy, just a handful of computers. They can spit out a proof, and anyone can really cheaply and inexpensively verify that proof, right? So you just post that tiny little proof to the chain. Why is this such a big deal? My argument would be that this makes smart contract chains and the way we've been building smart contract functionality for chains, maybe even a little, and certainly completely different. It opens up the door for us to now provide verifiable compute for Bitcoin and actually use Bitcoin as a smart contract chain. It allows us to massively reduce the costs of performing compute. It allows us to massively scale up the kind of computation we can do.
Yago, I think we lost you. I think you're going to need to jump out again, come back in. Sorry about that, guys. Once again, you know how it is with X. Typical, everybody's always rugging left and right. So classic things, classic things. But just to give you guys, just to let you guys know that there will be time for questions. I know that we lost you. Yes, we lost you.
Where did you lose me?
That's a great question.
You were talking about ZK execution providing us like with unbounded limits of compute.
Right. So I don't know where you guys lost me. So I'll just say that this turns on its head how we think about doing computation that people can verify. Right. That was the whole point of smart contracts and smart contract chains. Right. Letting people do computation that everyone can verify, so no one can cheat. Well, now instead of having to do it on thousands of computers with huge redundancy, we can do it on just a handful of computers. We can make it very, very cheap. We can make it very scalable. We can do much more complicated things. Like, for example, we could even run entire AIs or entire computer games in this way and just post tiny little proofs to a chain. And that chain could be Bitcoin or it could be Ethereum. And that is why we've seen most of the activity on Ethereum move off chain. It is why I think there's a huge opportunity for chains like Ethereum, even with sort of like what Solana are trying to do, which is still keep everything on chain. And it is why, and this is the biggest idea here, I think, is that we can build this kind of computation into the world's most trusted and secure chain, Bitcoin. And so I think it really changes how we think about the entire crypto world. We're no longer in a blockchain industry. We're now in a crypto asset and verifiable compute industry. And I think what RISC Zero have been doing is becoming a crucial piece of the infrastructure for allowing this. Jacob, would you agree with my take?
Yeah, I think in traditional blockchain environments that we've seen over the past 4 or 5 years, it turns out the more validators you add, the slower chain your typically needs to be because of this overhead, right? Because we're doing this calculation. We then essentially need to compare our results with every single person, and this applies massive overhead. And with ZK, we can completely decouple execution with.
I've lost Jacob. Is it just me?
Yes, we can hear him.
With traditional networks, we had more nodes. Let's get back to the basics. We all compare our result, right? And with ZK, we can completely decouple this execution. Because when I run the program, I'm 100% sure that I've run it. And all I have to do is check this very small, succinct receipt, regardless of how large the computation that's going to be done. And this what this allows to do is what we sort of say with Boundless is more nodes equal more power. So if I have one person with a single, GPU, they can do a single GPU worth of verifiable compute, and I'm 100% they've run the right program. But also we have, people, imagine someone with 10, 20,000 GPUs, they can now do that amount of computation as well. So we sort of get finally the notion of like boundless compute, and we can do much more. I think a great example of this is we recently had a partner request a 1 trillion cycle proof. This is like doing the same amount of execution Ethereum does in half a day, but in a single proof, in a single call. And now you can just do much more interesting things. We can do much more expressive calculations in a verifiable way.
Yago, did you get any of that?
I got most of it, I think. But I think bottom line, it sounds like Jacob and I are mostly in agreement on what is now possible, and sort of the next sort of implication of this. And here also, I'm kind of interested in Jacob's take. My belief is like if you roll the tape forward, and it's now no longer necessary to put all of this stuff into blockchains, I think we become crypto moves on from being a blockchain industry, right? Where like the most important player was the L1, to being a verifiable compute industry, to being a computation plus ZK proof industry. And there, operating systems like BitcoinOS, data availability systems, for example, like Celestia or Nubit, and ZK proving networks like Boundless and RISC Zero become the most important players. Jacob, do you think that is a likely outcome?
Yeah, I think we have just now seen that since ZK execution is cheaper than most blockchains, for comparison, in the RISC Zero ZK VM, you can verify a DEX swap for less than 1/100th of a cent, which I believe is cheaper than any chain under actual load. That we are going to start seeing experimentation and new protocols come out. I know some that I just can't talk about that I'm really excited about. One, analogy we like to see here is sometimes we get a critique because we're making ZK so cheap, and they're like, oh, how do you make a business behind that? If we think about the computer that sends the astronauts to the moon, it's over 10,000 times less powerful than my iPhone sitting next to me. And yet we still sit here and we're still waiting for the next GPU. We're still waiting for the next computer, because in the world of compute, once you give someone more, they're just going to end up using all of it. It's this thing called Javon's paradox. It's kind of funny to see like this whole like DeepSeek news happen yesterday. Like, oh wow, they figured out how to train a model for cheaper, but it's really just going to lead to more and more consumption and allow us to do more and better things. There has yet to be a diminishing return on the amount of compute we've allowed people to consume.
By the way, I don't want to interject. I kind of agree with you guys a lot, but one thing that I saw a lot when I was on the venture side was, and I'm really interested to hear your take, was where this all ends up with. What Yago is saying sounds like we all gonna become the Amazon Web Services or the Google Cloud of like permissionless and trustless compute. But like, where does that bring us with the infrastructure at the end of the day? Because so much of blockchain still runs on these servers. These servers have trusted execution environments already. Where do you think the users will go, and where do you think those things will they merge? Will they exist together? Will one take over the other?
Yeah, I think with regards to like other things like MPC, FHE, TEEs, they all have their niches when they make sense, but in general, ZK seems to be the end game for what blockchains are going after. For us with Boundless, we're less trying to launch a new chain and retrofit existing chains, which I think now that these existing chains, they don't need to modify to like some new consensus algorithm. They don't need to modify to some new, database. Super excited about all the work going on there as well. But you're just going to get boundless computation, boundless execution, with where you live now and with the communities you have now and the assets you have now.
Okay.
Yago, did you have anything to kind of contribute to that, or?
Well, I think we're in a transition phase, right? If you think about the last 10 years of the crypto space, the most valuable player was perceived to be the layer one, and that is where most of the value accrued. But we're already seeing that right now we've got like this weird barbell situation happening in the industry. You've got Bitcoin, which is growing very fast and accruing a lot of value. And then you've got assets that are accruing a lot of value and off-chain systems that are accruing a lot of value. And less of the value is sort of like accruing to L1s. And I think that that's because even though people aren't talking about it, and I think it's like none the interests of most people to talk about it, there has been a realization, right? That even people can just intuitively see, because there's just so many roll-ups now, for example, that the center of gravity is shifting. Now, this is not going to happen overnight. You still need ledgers, which is basically what layer one systems are. You still need some degree of compute processing so that you can at least process the ZK proofs in these different systems. And that's also where, and also, right now, all of the users, all of the assets, and all of the wallets, and sort of other systems are built for this blockchain centric world. And so we're really, that was the last 10 years, and it's not going to disappear overnight. But what we're going to see over the next 4 and 5 years is a continued process and an accelerating process of people being able, and developers being able to just like whip out a new DEX, a new application, and application types that we haven't even seen yet because they were just too compute intense, where you build this out, you run it more like a Web 2 system, right? You just run it with like big, beefy servers so that you can provide, high throughput computation like users are used to, almost giving users like a centralized experience. But these systems can be completely non-custodial, can be fully verifiable, and therefore incorruptible. And maybe the most exciting thing about it is not only do they get low costs, high speed, and great UX, but they can also now integrate with many, many chains instead of just trying to build one smart contract and put it onto a single chain.
I think it's going to come from the users as well. I think it's going to come from some kind of application that people want to use permissionlessly. I think it's really interesting to see what's happened in social media, for example, over the last 10 years with the Democrat government, with censorship on Facebook. If you listen to Mark Zuckerberg's recent interview on Rogan, you realize that Facebook is like a US company with US government control, but like it's actually a global company and the users are global. And there's nothing more global than blockchain. So I think it's going to come from the user side, where we saw Eric Voorhees launching a permissionless AI agent over the last 2 days, for example, one of the OGs in the space. And I think when you do that, when you launch those apps on Bitcoin and people are looking for, a non-governable company that has global reach. I use Facebook as an example because Zuckerberg was talking about how much pressure they got from the US government and how other governments would follow suit. But they're actually a global company. Once you get that, then it will be necessary to integrate blockchain architecture. And when you do that, ZK proof becomes the best execution environment that exists. I don't know what you guys think. I mean, that's kind of, at some point we're all using, like, wherever companies origin is, doesn't matter so much when the audience is completely global. I think Facebook has something like 3.5 billion users a month. Half the world's population are on that app. Why should one government own it or be able to influence it?
Yeah, I mean, I mostly agree with both of you have said. Like, ZK is becoming the best execution environment regardless of VM. You can, turns out, run a bunch of different VMs in it to whatever you prefer. And I'm very excited about some projects beefing up, right? Like this like centralized proving node or centralized sequencer and going really fast. But then we get to retroactively, verify everything. I guess stuff like Hashflow and Mega Ether are doing stuff like this. I'm also like very, very excited for ZK to start bringing in more real world use cases, and then using blockchains for the excellent settlement, layers that they are, right? Like, we use blockchains to settle arguments or disputes between parties of valuable assets, and they're very good at that. They're not like actually meant for execution. So using stuff like zkTLS for like web proofs, or I'm really excited about some work going on around tokenizing much more complex financial assets that just require more extensive, yield calculations that just aren't possible on a blockchain right now, but ZK are opening them up. And then what we can do, right, is like back it with the security of Bitcoin using something like BitcoinOS.
Jacob, I have a
What do you
question.
think about it? Oh, sorry, go ahead,
No,
Claire.
no, that's okay, David. I was gonna ask a different question, but if you have something to say, go ahead.
I was just, Jacob, since you guys have been working on ZK for so long on Ethereum, and the whole Ethereum space has been working on ZK for so long, what do you guys think about ZK running on Ethereum versus running on Bitcoin? And are there things that you can really bring over from all the experience you guys have from the Ethereum side to kind of accelerate the development on Bitcoin? Is it something that a lot of ETH builders have been wanting to do? I would love to hear some context about that.
Yeah, I think one thing that all ecosystems will have to give a shout out to Ethereum on is that they have pumped billions of dollars into ZK research. And we're sort of conforming on the standard of a RISC-V ZK VM. They're also spending tens of millions of dollars to make it secure. So like formal verification efforts,
Yep.
Open audit competitions, all of this stuff. But the great thing is people like Bitcoin and Solana, right? You just sort of get this end product, which is really cool. I think some things that could be built on Bitcoin that would be really interesting to me are like, imagine a single sequencer, really beefy node, lots of GPUs verifying everything, DEX, or even like sort of like a centralized exchange at that point that you can completely verify and still settle your assets to a chain built on top of Bitcoin. I think that would be super, super cool. I would say also learn from like the fragmentation issue as well. So having some sort of like Bitcoin aggregator is going to be a huge unlock as all these Bitcoin rollups start to emerge. I also think this sort of like Ethereum, and I think Bitcoin has this property as well, like have this really credibly neutral property that I don't think other chains have at the moment. And talking to like financial leaders saying, hey, this is a really secure platform to settle like billion, if not trillion-dollar portfolios to. And now we have a way to like verify all these yield calculations and verify that the assets are being traded correctly and all this, and they can still use that blockchain as that source of truth.
It's interesting. Thank you. That's what I've heard a lot of from ETH guys as well. Billions spent, people have a lot of knowledge. It's coming together now, it sounds like.
Yeah, and I think really like, right, Bitcoin has its own advantageous properties, Ethereum does, but really it's going to be really cool for like both ecosystems to adopt it. And that's why we're building Boundless, is like we want to help you easily deploy ZK applications regardless of where you are. And I mean, personally, I'm just very bullish on Bitcoin this year. There's so many great people working on really hard problems. There's been so many great progress around ecosystem projects as well. I'm just really excited to work with you guys and other people in the Bitcoin ecosystem.
And we're very, very excited to work with you guys. And I guess just to like piggyback off this conversation with Ethereum, how do you guys see the relationship between Bitcoin and Ethereum essentially like evolving with technologies like this? And I asked this to basically all the speakers up right now. But Jacob, if you want to go first.
Yeah, I think I don't know, does everyone remember the whole like Ethereum is ultra sound money argument? I think Ethereum is currently trying to pivot a little bit on um, just like having different value accrual like mechanisms for the ETH token to like make it like a hard asset and whatnot. But they've got the programmability part figured out, right? Like using an L2 today is very nice. Like Arbitrum, OP, Base, they all have very low block times. They can all do a lot of execution. There's other like even Bitcoin projects using those stacks. And it is a nice experience. It's not the DeFi summer of 2021, and they've made so much great progress since then, and the chain works a lot better. On the flip side, Bitcoin is like seen as gold, right? It's a hard asset. It has real value. It is being adopted by the largest financial institutions in the world. I literally think Fidelity, BlackRock are the largest financial asset managers in the world. And now it's time to figure out the programmability side of the part. The good thing being is that there will not be years of research to figure out a scalable solution. You guys get to inherit it right now and start to develop and use that asset to the advantage of like backing for security, lending against it, trading against it, all these really nice financial things that we've known to love on the smart contract platforms that other people use.
Thank you. And Yago, did you have any comment about that? Just the relationship between Bitcoin and ETH kind of evolving with ZK Tech?
Yeah, so I think Ethereum was created as a solution to a very, very significant problem, right? We had Bitcoin, and we had this very powerful asset, and even back in 2014, when Ethereum was first introduced to the world, and then in 2015, 16, when it launched, it was clear that you had a very fast-growing asset, which a lot of people desired, wanted to use, but it didn't have an application layer. And so what Ethereum attempted to do is introduce what they at the time were calling the world computer. Right now, obviously Ethereum isn't a computer. It's not like you log on to Ethereum and you're playing games on Ethereum or running Excel spreadsheets on Ethereum or doing Zoom calls on Ethereum. It's clearly not a computer. And the reason it's not a computer is because it doesn't scale for all the reasons we discussed earlier. But what it did do is it allowed just enough programmability for a whole host of applications that were really interesting to develop. DeFi applications, DAOs, NFTs, art. And so we've seen this really flourishing of creativity. And as a result, Ethereum built itself into the second most significant ecosystem in the crypto space. It also funded research, just as Jacob has said, into building more advanced forms of cryptography, which allow us to actually get to a point where we can run any computation in a way which is decentralized, incorruptible, verifiable. And so Ethereum has played an important role and continues to have this really important ecosystem. And right now it's under pressure from other systems. And the pressure it's under basically falls into two buckets. One bucket is Solana. So Solana, they said, look, we're going to build a chain with relatively few verifying nodes, and those verifying nodes are going to have huge computers. So we're going to be able to run a lot more on it. And so we'll give up a little on decentralization, but we'll give you more high throughput experience. And that has a role, right? Like we've seen that sort of play the role of being able, like if you're doing a lot of low cost trades, Solana is a place where that kind of activity is very popular. The other thing that has been putting pressure on Ethereum is the fact that 90% of its transaction activity has actually moved off of the main chain into all of these different rollups. And so so it's under pressure from those two things. But the second category, right? All of these rollups basically still maintain Ethereum as a hub and as an important part of the ecosystem. So I think what we're going to see over the next few months and over the next couple of years is we're going to see many of those systems built on Ethereum surpass Solana in terms of the amount of compute they're able to do, the speed at which they're able to do it, the scale at which they're able to do it. And actually, in a way, for that reason, I think a lot of people are maybe not bullish enough on how significant Ethereum can be, in part because of like the kind of technology that RISC Zero are building in the future. And so I think Ethereum is going to continue to have a important role to play. And one of the important roles it's going to have to play is also people are going to be able to build applications and smart contracts in that ecosystem, which talk to that ecosystem, but which also, for the first time ever, are able to trustlessly interact with Bitcoin and allow you to, lend, borrow, use Bitcoin for stable coins, and all kinds of the kind of stuff that we've seen people do with ETH. So Ethereum still got a lot of juice in it. But Ethereum is about to come under pressure from a new player. And in fact, the entire crypto space, I think, is going to be restructured over the next few years because Bitcoin has entered the chat. So that minimal amount of computation that allowed you to build more sophisticated things on Ethereum, well, Bitcoin has just leapfrogged that in sort of the same way that, in Africa, they never used landline phones. They just went straight to mobile phones. And Africa sort of leapfrogged into mobile payments as a result before anyone else in the world. Well, Bitcoin is going to be able to leapfrog all of the crypto systems out there because it's actually designed perfectly, better maybe than any other chain in the world, for this world where you're able to do huge amounts of compute off-chain and then verify that compute through BitcoinOS. And so my overall view is what we're going to see over the next few years is we're going to see a lot of crypto basically restructuring itself to kind of be external compute environments for Bitcoin. Bitcoin becoming the central hub, not just of price go up, price go down. Like if Bitcoin goes up, everything goes up. If Bitcoin goes down, everything goes down. But actually become the central hub of interoperability, of verifiability, and connectivity for the entire crypto space. And a few years from now, we're going to wake up in a world where we, for the first time, truly do have a sort of decentralized internet of value, a decentralized internet of assets, where the base layer is going to be Bitcoin. And then you're going to have various chains integrating into that, and not just chains, but also high throughput, even more centralized, but still because of the power of ZK verification, incorruptible systems integrating directly into Bitcoin. So that's where I think we're going to be in just a few years, and it's going to be a completely different world from the crypto world that we talk about now, where you have like basically all of these different chains and they're kind of islands, and they're not really integrated into one cohesive system. And so that's why we talk about BitcoinOS as being like the first operating system for the entire crypto space. And I think this is happening at the most important time, right? It's like happening exactly when we need it, because two really important things are happening right now. First of all, the global financial world is recognizing that Bitcoin is actually this new asset class and this new system that everyone can integrate into. So like Jacob said, BlackRock, the US government, Fidelity are all integrating into Bitcoin. And so we're going to start seeing a lot of the world of finance just running on crypto, running on Bitcoin. And the other thing is, we're building the most important, most powerful, and also most dangerous technology ever built by man, which is artificial intelligence. And we have two paths that we can go down as a species, and two paths that we can go down as individuals. We can either hand over all of our most important thinking to AIs that are controlled by someone else, or we can hand over all of our most important thinking to AIs which are controlled by us and which are verified by us. And the only way that we can do that is with ZK proofs integrated into the crypto space. And so this is a really exciting and really important time for humanity. We're going to go through the biggest changes we've ever seen. We're going to go through the greatest boost to productivity we've ever seen. And we're also going to be at a position where the people who take control of their digital assets, their digital data, and most importantly, their AI, are going to have more freedom than ever before. And the people who don't are going to be more sort of controlled and controllable than anyone has ever been before.
Wow, that is extremely, extremely exciting. And yeah, like you said, it's we're basically seeing history in the making, both.
How's that exciting? That's scary as fuck.
I
How's
mean,
that exciting?
I feel that. I feel that. Yeah.
I'm buying Bitcoin as we speak,
Fearfully
actually, right now.
exciting. But Yago,
Hitting the buy button.
I didn't want to interrupt you, but something's going on with your microphone. I'm not sure if you have like headphones on or something, but it's kind of spazzing out. But I guess like I just want to ask one more question before we kind of bring people up and kind of wrap up here. Um, so I guess I don't know who would be best to answer this, but I guess could you guys walk us through how a typical transaction would work using both Bitsnark and Boundless, since we're going to be integrating the two infrastructures, correct?
Sure. So actually, I've got a very specific example of this. So there's a big game company that have reached out to me, and they're talking about, we want to build using a standard. We want to build our computer game the way we've always built our computer game, like using a framework like Unity, using a programming language like Rust. But we want every in-game asset to be secured as a crypto asset. We want it to be available on Bitcoin, and we want to verify. We want to be able to verify everything that happens in this massive multiplayer game, so that users know that they can't be cheated. Can you help us? And just 6 months ago, I would have said no. You can't do that. Like, technology is not even nearly available to do that. But today, I can say yes. You can write your game with the same devs that you're using today, using the same frameworks that you're using today, right? In the same language. You can write it in Rust, a highly performant, just standard Web 2 language. And then you can run extremely complicated computations, right? An entire world with tens of thousands of players. And those players and all of that is going to be proven on Bitcoin to be happening exactly the way it's supposed to be happening, right? And all of those assets are going to be provably on Bitcoin with programmable tokens, and stablecoins and BTC are going to be able to be a currency that is part of this game for the first time ever. And so loot boxes will actually be able to trustlessly have BTC in them. And so we're entering an entirely new world where the way this will work is they build that system using writing in Rust. That Rust gets verified through RISC Zero, right? They connect their service to the Boundless network, able to then push out huge amounts of proofs, even for very, very complicated computations. Those proofs get written to Bitcoin and interpreted by BitcoinOS. And there you have it. That's the entire system. So something that was totally impossible, almost unimaginable 6 months ago, 6 months from now is going to be happening.
That's very exciting. That's very, very exciting to see. Jacob, did you want to comment on that as well before we bring anybody up?
I mean, yeah, I think very excited about like all the programmability coming along. And then I think where we're really going to focus is just like, you need to like do this proof generation, which can be quite intensive and is much more operationally efficient on like large data center setups. And we're just going to make sure that that sort of infrastructure is going to be really easily available to anyone using BitcoinOS.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. And now I guess let's move on to some questions from the community. If anybody has any questions whatsoever, like please request and we will bring you up as a speaker. There was quite a few of you that had sent requests, but unfortunately we couldn't bring you up until now. We just wanted to get through the AMA first. But yeah, if anybody has any questions whatsoever, feel free to hit the request and we will bring you up. And in the meantime, just want to give a shout out to some people that are in here. Some regulars. We see Spoon, Shro, Omega, The Traveler, Luca, good to see you. Sovereign is in here. Let's see, we have Hyde, Ravnica, good to see you all. Ronan. Thank you all so much for being here. Really, really appreciate it. And again, yeah, if anybody has any questions whatsoever, we're happy to bring you up. But if not, we will probably be wrapping up here. So just giving you guys 30 seconds here to hit those requests. But okay, guys, well, it seems that nobody has any questions. Of course, if you guys do have any questions later on, feel free to hop into our Discord. My DMs are always open for you guys, or feel free to tag me. I'm happy to answer anything. As always, these AMAs are also recorded and will be uploaded to YouTube. I also upload a summary onto our Discord as well. So if you just jumped in and you're kind of out of context, I will definitely be posting a summary regarding the space. We actually have Spoon who is requesting. Let's bring you up real quick. Wow, X is really, really slow today. He has been connecting for the last 45 seconds. But yeah, what I was saying too was just we also just started our second skirmish of meme wars. So if you guys are interested in participating in meme wars and earning upwards of, I believe it's about $166 in gift cards, feel free to jump in on our Discord to participate in that as well. We'd love to have you. We're actually going to also be running a new Zeely sprint starting, I believe it's going to be on the 1st of February. And that is also going to be incentivized too. So for the first time, we're actually going to be incorporating some USDC rewards. So if you guys are interested in that, we'd love to have you on our Discord so that you guys can participate in that as well. I do believe that Spoon is rugging, so let me just re-invite him again. Welcome, my friend.
Man, that took a long time.
It did, it did. I think X is having a lot of issues today.
I was about to leave and then come back, but I'm here. Thank you for the mic. I've listened to some of your spaces, and I appreciate what you guys do, and I understand what you guys are doing. And I think it could be it could be good where I want to be able to bridge to whatever it is you guys are doing with my network once we create ours. Because you'll do a lot of the work, so you're gonna save me a lot of time. That's how I look at it. So if that's any way where Boss has an API or some sort of a SDK that other projects can plug into to bridge directly, and you guys extend from yours, that would be great. That would be my question. If there's any capabilities like that.
We are building out an API and SDK, uh, and actually a whole bunch of tools for developers to make building on Bus easier. Um, but one of the cool things about Bus is that actually you don't need too much to just get started if you're willing to do a little bit of the scaffolding yourself. Because if you're able to build a system, let's say integrated with RISC Zero, so that what you're doing generates but snark proofs, then it's going to be extremely easy to send those snark proofs to a boss node, and get them written to Bitcoin and verified in Bitcoin.
And Yago, if you could just clarify what a snark proof is.
Well, when we talk about ZK proofs, there's all kinds of proofs, but more and more of the industry is moving towards what are known as snark proofs, specifically Groth 16, which is a type of snark proof. And the reason is these proofs can be really, really small, and they're always the same size. They're succinct, so small, and they're a constant size. And so you can take extremely huge computations and you can prove them out with tiny little proofs, which are extremely inexpensive to verify. And so that's a huge sort of like quantum leap in what we're able to do in the crypto space.
Thank you, Yago. And so yeah, Spoon, does that answer your question? So we are building an API and SDK as well as other tools for builders. But did you have any other questions?
No, yes, it does answer my question, and I look forward to the documentation, so this way my team can look at it, see if it's appropriate, and if it meets our requirements to what we're building. So I'm excited.
Absolutely. No, it's always a pleasure having you up on our spaces and contributing and asking questions. So it means a lot. And yeah, we'll definitely once we have more information, I'll definitely be reaching out to you so that we can kind of get that going. But here we have one more request. We have time for one more request. So
My next question, probably on your next show, is probably talk about the infrastructure for Boss, just to make sure that that's going to be able to handle certain traffics.
yeah, if you want, we'll actually we're planning on having a community call this Friday. So if you would like to just jump in on the community call and ask that question, then we can definitely answer that for you.
Roger that. Sounds good.
Awesome, sounds good. Derek, welcome, welcome. The mic is yours, my friend.
Yeah, Jim, everyone. Jim Allen, Bitcoin OS, Yago, Jacob, every person on the space. And I see a lot of OJ Spawn. I think Spawn brought me to the space and I got his notification. I saw the topic, so I gotta hop in and know what it's all about. Yo, I don't know if you guys have hosted this space for a while. So sorry that I'm late, but I don't know. So yeah, I just want to know what Bitcoin OS is all about. I don't know if you can do justice to that. Maybe give me a brief insight. Although you guys might have talked about that, I'm so sorry for the inconvenience. So yeah, I don't know.
So you're basically just asking like what Bitcoin OS is all about, correct?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, so I could just give you a quick explanation before we like close out here. And we'd actually love to have you on our community call. We'll be having one hopefully this Friday. I'll be putting out an announcement like within the next like day or two. So please stay tuned for that. But just to give you kind of like a quick TLDR, very simplified explanation. What we're doing is we've built an operating system, kind of like Windows or iOS, but for Bitcoin, right? And the entire kind of goal of this is to kind of take this like fragmented multi-chain ecosystem that we have and kind of anchor it back home to Bitcoin, right? Where it all started. And what that's going to allow with Bitcoin is it's going to allow trustless bridging. It's going to allow programmability, which is something that, you know, we haven't necessarily seen on Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin wasn't designed to be this programmable blockchain like Solana or Ethereum. And so now utilizing our technology, utilizing zero knowledge proofs, we're actually going to be able to see programmability and kind of DeFi come to life in with Bitcoin. But yeah, the ultimate kind of goal here is kind of like to take this like fragmented ecosystem that we have and kind of unify it, right? Bring everything back home to Bitcoin. And something that's beautiful that we're going to see too is now this like $1.9 trillion that's been sitting dormant in Bitcoin is going to now seamlessly and beautifully flow into the entire Web3 ecosystem. So everybody's going to essentially get a piece of the cake, right? And to also just give you another explanation too, we've also built out what we call the Grail. It's a bridge, and it's a trustless bridge. So typically, when you're bridging, there's a centralized vault that somebody has the keys to, right? Somebody has access to. So with us, our technology is built out so that there is no centralized custodian that we have to trust. We simply just trust cryptography. We trust zero knowledge proofs to basically do all the work for us. So we remove that need for like a centralized intermediary, right? So this is so once again, that just kind of like makes everything like a lot more secure, right? The more we can remove that centralized custodian, like the more decentralized things can kind of be. But like I said, would love to have you on our community call this Friday, and that goes for everybody else as well. If anybody would like to just ask Bitcoin OS related questions, or even ask questions about RISC Zero too, or regarding any of our partnership integrations, we would love to have you all there. But Derek, yes, my friend.
All right, thank you so much, for the sharp and swift breakdown. Definitely, I will join the Discord community, right? I just shot Bitcoin OS a follow, so I will, get my way to the Bitcoin to the Discord community. There I can shoot more questions, right? So yeah, I see that you're trying to rock the space. So thank you so much, guys, for having me. My name is Derek. I'm a content specialist, right? So yeah, I organize communities. That's what I do. So see you guys on the Discord call. Thank you for having me.
Wow, Derek, thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you and Spoon as well. And yeah, just to wrap this up, Jacob, thank you so much for being here today. It was so nice getting to know you and just hearing what you had to say about the integration, about ZKPs and kind of, bringing this Ethereum programmability to Bitcoin. It's really interesting to kind of see Bitcoin, evolve and kind of see what the future looks like in the even the next couple of months, right? Everybody's building so much for Bitcoin right now and doing all the hard things. So, yeah, it's extremely exciting to kind of see that come into fruition. But Jacob, once again, thank you so much for being here. Once again, it was a pleasure having you. David, thanks for coming up as a speaker. And shout out to everybody that was here as well, just listening and asking questions. If you guys would like to join our community call, it'll most likely be this Friday. We'd love to have you. If you have any questions whatsoever, as always, feel free to DM me, join our Discord and tag me. I'm pretty much at your service. We also have a lot of sorry, not Discord, but a lot of community events that are taking place right now. And we would love for you all to participate because they are incentivized, but also just a great way to kind of just connect with like-minded people, of course. But yeah, with that, guys, I wish you all a very bullish week. I hope that you guys have a wonderful rest of your week and one wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much for being here and take care.